Have you ever wondered what actually happens in those first few minutes after a cyber attack hits? Forget the crazy Hollywood stuff with frantic typing and big red countdown timers. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and go inside a digital command center to see how the pros turn absolute chaos into a calm, controlled, and methodical response. So let's just jump right into it. Imagine the alarms are blaring. You've got a ransomware attack and it's actively chewing through your company's files. The clock is ticking. What's the very first move? Is it just pure panic? Everybody running around, scrambling to pull plugs out of the wall? Well, for a team that's actually prepared, the answer is a hard no. See, the first thing that happens isn't just a reaction. It's a deliberate action. It's the moment they launch a coordinated response. And this is so critical because this is where the team stops being a victim and starts taking control of the investigation. Okay, so where does all this coordination even happen? It happens inside a digital command center. Think of it as the central hub, the mission control for managing the entire crisis from the very beginning to the very end. Now, this command center is built on something called an incident management system. And really, you can just think of it as the ultimate project management tool, but built for a crisis. It's this one single place where every piece of evidence gets documented, every single action gets tracked, and every decision is recorded for everyone to see. And for our deep dive today, we're going to be looking at one of the most popular open source platforms out there, the Hive. Honestly, it's a perfect way to show how the pros manage the entire life cycle of a security incident. Okay, so what makes a tool like the Hive tick? Let's use a little analogy here. Think of it like a digital emergency room. The front end, that's what the analyst sees. It's like the patient's chart all laid out nice and clear. The back end, that's the hospital's core system, the brains of the operation, processing all the data behind the scenes. And Cortex? Well, that's the specialist you call in for a consult. It's an intelligence engine that can analyze clues and help you get a diagnosis. Fast. All right, so the attack is confirmed. What's next? Well, the very first step isn't about chasing the attacker. Nope. It's about building the secure digital room where the whole investigation is going to happen. You have to create a controlled environment before you can even think about stepping into the uncontrolled one the attacker created. And this really happens in two key steps. First, you set up a secure, private workspace, which the Hive calls an organization. This is so important for keeping all the evidence clean and separated, especially if things go to court. And second, you assign the responders, creating user accounts with very, very specific roles and permissions. And this right here shows you that first step perfectly. The system administrator is creating a brand new organization, which is basically a secure digital war room. Every single thing related to this ransomware attack is going to live inside this container, totally isolated, totally controlled, and ready for the investigation to begin. Now let's see how the team gets built. Right here, a new user is being created. And notice that profile is set to Analyst. This is absolutely crucial. It gives them all the power they need to investigate and manage the case, but it stops them from, say, accidentally changing critical system settings. Everybody gets the keys they need and nothing more. Okay, the team is in place. The digital room is secure. Now, it's time to get to work. The next step is to formally open a case file. And this does something incredibly important. It takes this big, scary, abstract emergency and turns it into a concrete, trackable investigation. So this is the view from our new analyst seat. They've just logged in. The dashboard? It's a clean slate, totally empty. Now, this isn't the calm before the storm. This is ground zero of the response. This is the starting line where every single action is going to be launched from. And here we go, that first decisive action. The analyst clicks New Case. And just by giving it a title, a severity level, and some tags, they're basically drawing a chalk outline around the chaos. You're defining the problem, which, as we all know, is the first step to actually solving it. And boom, just like that, case number 1 is live. From this moment on, this screen is the single source of truth for the entire incident. Every task, every piece of evidence, every little discovery is going to be linked right back here to this central case file. The investigation is officially on. Now, you might have noticed that little TLP red setting. So what's that all about? Well, TLP stands for Traffic Light Protocol, and it's basically an industry standard for classifying sensitive information. Setting it to red means the details of this case are extremely sensitive and should only be seen by people directly involved. It's all about controlling the flow of information when things get crazy. All right, the case is officially opened. But this big, scary problem of a ransomware attack needs to be broken down, right? You can't solve it all at once. So you turn it into a bunch of small, manageable tasks. It's time to create and assign the first moves. So where do you start? Simple. Right inside that case file, the analyst goes to the Tasks section and clicks Add Task. It seems like a small click, but this is the beginning of creating a structured, methodical plan to fight back against the attackers. Okay, so a task is created, triage and artifacts collection. But check out the most important part. It's immediately assigned to the investigator. This is such a huge deal. The problem is no longer this vague cloud of dread. Now it's a specific task owned by a specific person. That clear ownership, that accountability is the bedrock of any good response. And as the investigator gets to work, they add logs. You see, this is way more than just a to-do list. It's a meticulous, real-time evidence trail. Right here, they're noting the exact computers they're pulling data from. Every action is documented, creating this perfect auditable record that can be used for analysis, for reports, or even in court. Now, this whole manual process is fantastic for control, but it does bring up a really important question. What about speed and consistency? How do expert teams get faster and better over time? Well, that's where the brilliant idea of a playbook comes in. I mean, think about it for a second. Do you really think experienced analysts create every single one of these tasks from scratch for every single ransomware attack they see? No way. Of course not. They use their experience to work smarter, not just harder. For common threats like ransomware, they use playbooks. What are they? They're basically predefined case templates, already packed with all the tasks you need, all based on industry best practices and what the organization has learned from past incidents. It's just like a checklist for a surgeon. It makes sure nothing gets missed, especially when you're under a ton of pressure. And honestly, this is the masterstroke of the whole system. Instead of starting a new blank case from zero, an analyst can just select the ransomware playbook. The system then automatically creates the case and fills it up with every single task they need, from the initial triage all the way to eradication. This is how you build expertise into the system itself, making every single response faster and more effective than the last one. So as we wrap this up, it really all boils down to one thing. The difference between a minor headache and a full-blown catastrophe often isn't the attack itself. It's the structure of the response. It's about having a system to turn that initial chaos into a clear, actionable plan. So the question you have to ask yourself is this. When that crisis finally hits, is your team going to be working from a plan, or are they just going to be working from panic?